I appreciate that. We checked. Never. Not a single time did the greatest player of all time wear a patch honoring himself. Wilt never did it. Russell never did it. Bird never did it. Magic never did it. Charles never did it. MJ never did it. But your guy, the most narcissistic, self-important human being on the planet, has now done it twice. And he's got more patches coming. But when the king narcissist breaks the record, even though he's a stat compiler and is only breaking records because of his longevity in the league, he wants to make sure everybody knows about it. So he picks the patch. The NBA says, yes, sir, you can wear the patch. We work for you, LeBron. And he embarrasses himself. So he's got one patch for turnovers, because he's got more turnovers than anybody in the NBA. And he's got another patch coming for most field goals missed. What an absolute clown.
The instant Craig Carton stepped into this conversation, it was obvious this wouldn't be another cautious, watered-down NBA debate. There was something different about it. It felt personal. It sounded like someone was finally voicing what many fans had been thinking for a long time but didn't want to say publicly. Then he brought up LeBron James and the jersey patch controversy, and the entire discussion shifted gears. At that point, it stopped being only about basketball. Now the focus was on influence, authority, and whether certain stars receive special treatment at the highest levels of the league.
And tell them now that he has, I think, made the most field goals in the history of the NBA, which is clearly a compiling stat, that he wants a new patch.
So here's how the story unfolded. The controversy started picking up steam when fans began noticing something unusual surrounding LeBron's jersey patch situation. At first glance, it seemed like a minor sponsorship or branding issue. But the deeper people looked, the more questions started to emerge. Why does it sometimes feel like certain players operate under a different set of rules? Why do controversies so often lead back to LeBron, yet rarely seem to have any lasting impact on him? That's the point where Carton stepped in and essentially said enough is enough. Here's what many people aren't discussing. The NBA has always built its business around superstar players, but according to Carton, the situation with LeBron feels different. It's no longer just about promotion and marketing. It's about protection. He argued that the league consistently goes the extra mile to preserve LeBron's public image. Whether the topic is officiating decisions, media coverage, or situations like this jersey patch controversy, the outcome often appears to benefit him. And when those moments are viewed across a career that spans more than 2 decades, some critics stop seeing random coincidence and start seeing a recurring pattern.
NBA apparently works for him that they've approved this, because they do have to approve it after all, that it's time for him to wear a new patch on his jersey.
Let's look at the bigger picture. The jersey patch controversy may seem like a small issue on the surface, but for many people, it symbolizes a much larger concern. These patches are connected to sponsorships, branding agreements, and significant league revenue. The expectation is that the rules surrounding them should be applied consistently across the board. However, when fans noticed what they believed were inconsistencies involving LeBron, it sparked a wave of questions. Are some players receiving treatment that others don't get? Are business interests influencing how certain situations are handled depending on the star involved? Carton didn't shy away from those questions. He openly addressed a topic many critics feel is rarely discussed. According to his argument, the NBA has a favoritism issue, and LeBron often becomes the most visible example people point to. He highlighted instances where other players faced fines, criticism, or disciplinary action over situations that appeared far less significant. Meanwhile, LeBron has often emerged from controversies with little lasting damage to his reputation or standing. Whether that perception is fair or not, it's a major reason why some fans continue to express frustration. To them, it's not just about one jersey patch situation. It's about the belief that different standards may exist for different players.
You might remember when John Stockton became the all-time assist leader in NBA history. Yeah. At no point did he wear a patch that said all-time leader, assists. Never did it.
This is where the conversation becomes much bigger than a single controversy. Once fans start questioning whether the game is being governed fairly, confidence in the league begins to erode. When that trust disappears, every major decision starts looking suspicious. And that feeling is already spreading across social media and sports discussions. Fans are debating officiating in marquee matchups, questioning award races, and scrutinizing how certain stories are covered by the media. Whenever LeBron finds himself at the center of those debates, it only intensifies the discussion, whether the criticism is justified or not. To understand why, it's important to consider the scale of LeBron's influence. He's one of the most visible athletes the sports world has ever seen. Nearly every move he makes generates headlines. His games consistently attract national attention. That kind of exposure naturally creates influence and visibility. The concern raised by critics is what happens when that influence is perceived to extend beyond publicity and begins affecting how situations are handled. Carton touched on that idea by drawing comparisons to other superstar players who, in his view, don't appear to receive the same level of benefit or protection when controversies arise. Whether people agree with that assessment or not, it's a perspective that resonates with many fans who believe the league treats certain stars differently. And when those perceptions continue to build over time, the debate shifts from individual incidents to questions about the league's overall credibility and consistency.
Matter of fact, in the history of the NBA, for every individual player that at some point had set the record for the most of blank, not a single one of them ever wore a patch on his jersey to acknowledge his greatness.
Look at players such as Kevin Durant and James Harden. Both have spent years dealing with heavy criticism, relentless media attention, and intense scrutiny over the choices they've made throughout their careers. Yet many critics argue that when LeBron finds himself in controversial situations, the conversation often evolves in a way that ultimately benefits him. The focus shifts, the narrative changes, and the backlash tends to lose momentum. According to that viewpoint, it's not simply a coincidence. It's a reflection of the influence that comes with being one of the most powerful and recognizable figures in the sport.
That LeBron James is only about LeBron James. For him to want and to wear a patch, nobody else wants to wear it. Nobody else is going to wear it.
And then you have the media layer on top of this. Major sports networks often frame LeBron as untouchable, almost like criticizing him is off-limits. Carton pushed back on that hard. He basically challenged the idea that LeBron should be immune to criticism just because of his legacy. And honestly, that's where this debate gets really interesting. Because legacy is supposed to be built on greatness, not protection. Here's the part nobody is talking about. When young players come into the league and see this, what message does it send? That if you become big enough the rules don't apply to you. That branding matters more than fairness. That's a dangerous precedent for the future of the NBA. Now let's connect this to what's happening around the league right now. The NBA is in a weird place. There's insane talent everywhere. Players like Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, and Victor Wembanyama are taking over. The league should be transitioning into a new era, but instead it still feels like everything revolves around LeBron. And that's not entirely his fault, but it becomes a problem when it overshadows the rest of the league.
He's not going to wear a patch that says most missed field goals, which he also has the record for. He's not going to wear a patch that says most turnovers in the history of basketball, which he also has the record for. But he is going to wear a patch, a one of one, that says most field goals made. Now,
this is where many young players can fall into a trap. They look at the path taken by established superstars and assume the same approach will work for everyone. What they often fail to realize is that not every player operates with the same level of influence, visibility, or leverage. The circumstances that apply to someone like LeBron don't automatically apply to everyone else, and that difference can create frustration throughout the league. Carton also raised a point that many people are reluctant to acknowledge. At the end of the day, the NBA is both a sport and a business. If a player generates massive ratings, sells merchandise, and keeps attention focused on the league, there is a natural incentive to protect that value. The question is where the line should be drawn. Because once fans believe business interests are affecting competitive fairness, trust becomes harder to maintain. And that skepticism is already visible. Social media discussions are filled with debates about preferential treatment and double standards. Fans dissect every controversial play, review officiating decisions frame by frame, and challenge the narratives presented around major stories. Whenever LeBron becomes part of a new controversy, those concerns tend to resurface even stronger than before. The timing makes the conversation even more significant. LeBron is in the later stages of one of the most remarkable careers the sport has ever seen. Every season carries the feeling of a historic final chapter. Naturally, the league wants to maximize the attention, storylines, and memorable moments that come with it. But if fans begin to believe that this focus extends into areas such as officiating, sponsorships, or league decisions, tension starts to build. That's where the issue becomes larger than any single player. The league's credibility depends on the belief that competition remains fair and outcomes are earned on the court. If enough fans start viewing results through the lens of star power rather than performance, the experience of watching the game changes. The focus shifts away from pure competition and toward questions about influence and perception. Whether people agree with Carton or not, he succeeded in forcing that discussion into the spotlight. When you zoom out, the broader picture becomes clear. LeBron's basketball legacy is already established beyond debate. Championships, records, longevity, and sustained excellence have secured his place among the greatest players ever. Controversies like this don't erase those accomplishments. What they do is add another layer to the conversation surrounding his career. The questions being asked aren't really about talent. Most people agree on that part. The debate centers on influence. How much impact did LeBron's status have beyond the court? Did his position within the sport shape the way certain situations were handled? And if so, what does that mean for how people evaluate his legacy in the future? Because legacy isn't determined only by achievements. It's also shaped by the context surrounding those achievements. Even the perception of favoritism can influence how fans interpret a player's career and the environment around it. That's why this discussion is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. At this point, it's about more than a jersey patch or a single controversy. It's about competitive integrity, public trust, and the standards the league chooses to uphold moving forward. So the real question becomes this. If a league gives special attention to its biggest stars, is that simply smart business, or does it risk damaging the sport's credibility? And if LeBron sits at the center of that debate, does it diminish his legacy, or does it demonstrate the extraordinary influence he has built over 2 decades? No matter where people stand, one thing is certain. This conversation is far from over.